we have 7 kids. We have 5 girls and 2 boys, and all of the kids are kind of running around. And I think my wife had asked, you know, where our son was, our oldest son, and he, several of the kids were like, oh, you know, we've seen him around. He was outside riding his bike, or he was, you know, saw him in the backyard, and so it's like, okay. And so we didn't think much of it. And then we kind of finished up with the pool guy, and then I stopped and go, well, you know, I haven't seen him myself in a little while. The kids mentioned he was riding his bike, and so his bike was missing. And so we were like, well, let me go see if he went to the park. And I went to the park and drove over there. Nothing there. Drove back and said, all right, it's time to call 911. And so that's really when things started to get really real. You know, the only thought that really could go through our heads was, you know, somebody's taking him. And just fear really gripped us. We immediately got together and started praying. And our next door neighbor is actually a police officer, and he had actually just left to go out of town that morning. And we called him to see, you know, I know he has video cameras, to see if he could see anything on his video camera. And we were able to see on the video camera him kind of riding his bike around the cul-de-sac, and we could see he made kind of 2 loops, and then he never came back. And so we didn't know what had happened. So we started trying to look. Friends came over, started looking. They started canvassing the neighborhood, looking for anyone who had cameras out in their front of their house, trying to find anyone who had seen him. And you know, we had to start notifying family, and that's really when I broke down, was having to call my parents and just say that my son was missing. I called and got a hold of my mom, and I just couldn't speak. And so we were extremely worried. And it was, we called, I think, 911 at about 9:30 or so, and it was, I think, 12:45 before we finally got the call. So there was definitely a few hours where the only thing that that was going through our mind was, he's gone.
Well, I'd actually taken the dog for a walk in the morning, and I saw him on his bike, kind of mountain biking it down the side of the road, and came through, and that was like earlier in the morning, around 8ish or so. Then I was out doing chores here, and the ladies in the neighborhood were visiting in the driveway, and one came by, and I'd noticed Officer Arbus' vehicle over there, and we asked about it, and he said something about a missing child, and then she mentioned I think it's a green helmet and red shorts, and I said, oh my goodness, I saw him. So I went running over to the officer and told her that I saw him earlier in the day, and told her where, and you know, she called it in, and they kind of headed out to go look for him. So I popped out and grabbed lunch and came back. When I came back, I noticed that you know, there were a lot of people out still looking for him, the police cars and whatever. So I just told her, my wife, that I was going to go take a look around for him. So I drove the route where I thought he might be, and coming back, the neighbor was out there. Their neighbor was out by the creek bed, and they were looking with his son. And I spoke with him for a few minutes, and then I was getting ready to get back in my car, and then that's when God said, you know what? Where would you be? What would you be doing if you were that little boy? I said, I'd be out in the woods. I'd be out in the woods exploring. So I instead turned around and walked off. You've got the access roads out there into that open area, and so I walked a good ways in, and just about stopped. I said, well, it goes a little farther, I'll go look. And I went a little bit farther, and there was a little clearing, and that's when I spotted his bike, which was great. And so that was a sigh of relief, because, well, he's out here somewhere, and a few more steps, and there he was. So I kind of paused, because here I am, this strange man out in the woods, and this poor kid's cornered at this point. So I told him who I was, and I asked him his name and his phone number, and I called his parents up on the phone, and then I I put on speakerphone and I had them talk a little bit. And I said, look, we're out in the middle of the woods. I said, let me walk them out. And I told them what my car looked like, where it was, and whatever. And then we went out there, and there was a whole group waiting for us. So
thankfully, Mr. Muha took it upon himself to listen to the Lord and to listen to that call, to not just be idle and stand by, but to get out and go search for him. You know, he said he had seen the police officers driving by and wondered maybe they're looking for him, and he decided to hide. He was like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. He was like, maybe I could sneak back, and no, if the police are involved, there's no sneaking back at that. He said, you know, he really just was wanting to get out and be alone for a little while, and you know, being amongst one of 7 kids and being surrounded by 5 girls. You know, our other son is under 2 years old, and so you know, he wanted some alone time, some boy time. Good advice that we received from someone was, love them today, punish them tomorrow.
Kids are our most valuable resource in Bryan. They're really the only innocent thing left in the world, and so when we know that there's a chance of a child being in danger, we do everything.
oh yeah, and you don't have a lot of time. So
it was a real blessing that day that you were available and you'd seen him and assisted us and was able to find him. So
really glad
the chief has signed this. This is a Civilian Service Citation with your name on it, and the write-up from the officers that were involved, essentially saying you should be awarded this. So I'd like to present this to you today on behalf of the police.
I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Something that's noteworthy or above and beyond, we have what we call a challenge coin, and so we want to award you one of those also.
Oh, great, great. Thank you.
There you go, sir. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you all for your service.